And so I had this opportunity because my parents were going through a divorce, and it was actually, they'd already been divorced, but my mom was like slowly whittling this business down to nothing, to the point where she was bankrupt, and it was really a bad scene. And so I had, some relationships, and I went to a few of the clients and I said, listen, I think I could do this. So I started off with about 10 clients, and I had my proper licensing, and I didn't know what I was doing at all. And, I just grew from there. But I guess what I did have was like resilience and spirit, and I guess, when you're 24, you also don't need a lot. I didn't have a lot of expenses. I had a car and whatever, a place to live. I didn't really care if I ate. So, and then within about 2 years, I started picking up some traction, and, like I said, then I never really wanted to do it that threatening way. I wanted to do it with sales, but that failed. And, if you remind me, I also wanted to, because my divorce was 10 years ago too. So I would love for us to get into a conversation like that.
Definitely. We'll definitely have the
divorce woes.
The divorce, exactly. The late
2008.
Divorce. Oh my God, yes, that's on my list.
2008 was great.
Yeah, it totally was. The economy fell apart. It was a good time. We'll circle back around to that later.
Thank you.
So what was that moment then? Because then you said you went to Tony Robbins. I've also done the Walk on Fire, Tony Robbins Rah Rah events, which are absolutely fascinating. But what was that moment where you were like, I need to change something, and I see what Tony Robbins is doing, and I'm interested enough to go and do this and see how I can change things that way?
I was really inspired, definitely, the first time I went to Unleash the Power Within, which is, I'm assuming, the same thing you went to. Yeah. And I went in 2005. And when I came back, I don't know that I felt like something was wrong and that I needed to change per se, because I'm not even sure I was self-aware enough back then to know that I needed to change. But I definitely saw this being applicable in my business. And what I really loved was the whole know your outcome, and what you focus on grows. So that's where, too, I just applied that, and what I was focusing on and what I wanted the outcome to be was that next person who calls to be happier at the end of the call. And then just like what Tony Robbins says during that seminar, and what I was learning later on that collaborated this, was that when you give your subconscious, or when you give your brain a command, it really will come up with the ideas that will see you through to that goal or to that outcome. And so making that the goal was sort of the moment that began me, like I always say, it's the moment that changed the entire trajectory of the rest of my life. Like, it changed everything, that one moment.
Wow, okay. So the journey of your company and what you've done since then, at what point did you decide that you wanted to write a book?
I, for like 10 years, had wanted to write a book, and I had this inner secret, super secret, like don't tell anybody, but the secret desire to be a motivational speaker.
Oh, okay.
And I was so embarrassed to even tell people that. But what I would tell people all the time is that I wanted to write a book. But my mantra was, I want to write a book, but I'm not a writer. And the thing about that is that words literally are like a mirror to your subconscious mind. And when you hear me say the words, I want to write a book, it's like you can see that written on my soul, like this purpose that I came in and I'm to write this book. I wanted it so badly. But I've got a big problem when the next words out of my mouth are, but I'm not a writer, because that's also revealing something in my subconscious that shows me that somewhere I've picked up a belief system, or, for some reason I don't believe in myself enough that I could write this book. And so the solution to that was like, I really needed to invest in myself in order to change that belief. And this kind of goes right back into that subconscious mind stuff, that belief was buried deep inside of me, and I didn't want to go through 10 years of therapy to figure out who in the second grade told me that I was not a writer. So instead, I just wrote a new neural pathway, and I built a new belief that supported what I wanted to do in life. And you can do that in so many different areas. And so, I wanted to write it for 10 years, and I finally took action probably in around 2015, and then within 7 months I had a book deal.
Wow. So by take action, can you tell me more details about that? Like, did you actually sit down in front of your computer and just start writing this out? Did you like dictate it to yourself or to like an assistant? How did that process work?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'll tell you what. That was part of the problem because in my mind, I thought that's what writers did, that they sat down and they like banged out a book word for word, chapter by chapter.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to do that. What I did was I went to a writer's workshop at Omega Institute. It was taught by Cheryl Strayed. She's a famous writer of many, many books. She wrote the book Wild that then became a movie starring Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, yeah.
She was my first writing teacher, and she was amazing. And so that's the action I took. I signed up for this writer's workshop, and by the end of that week, I wrote a piece. I actually called it Blink, and it was all about my daughter who passed away in 1993 from a very severe brain damage incident at birth, and my son who's on the spectrum. And I paralleled these things with my roller coaster life as an entrepreneur. And at the end, when I read this short story to the class, no one said to me, hey, look, you're not a writer. In fact, it was the opposite. Like, people were in tears. People were hugging me. I had several women ask me if they could use that piece for their, anthologies or whatever they were working on. And it was this moment that my brain had this evidence that it needed. So, sometimes if you take one step in a new direction, it's like 10,000 new possibilities open up for yourself. Yeah. You just have to take that one step.
Yeah. So 2015, you wrote the book, and then you had so did you write the book and then submit it and get a book deal, or how did that correlation work?
Okay. So, how crazy do you want this story to get?
As crazy as you want to tell it.
All right, I'm going to tell it then. And I've never told this on a show before. So this is honest to God what happened.
Okay.
Actually, no, I did not do that. What I did was I wrote a book proposal.
Okay.
And I got home from that writer's workshop. I really didn't do much, but I think that I believed in myself a little bit. And then something came around from Hay House. They were having a writer's workshop. And if you go to their writer's workshop, you get to submit a proposal. So I thought, cool, here's my chance. So I go to this writer's workshop, and I learn all about writing a proposal. And I start writing a proposal. I worked on this for 5 months. 5 months I'm writing this proposal, and it's all about my business communication strategy. Okay. And then literally the proposal was due in I think in August, and it was or September, and it was July. And I realized, you know what? Hay House is not going to publish a business book because they are a spiritual and personal growth and development publisher. Mm-hmm. So I was like, what the hell am I going to do? So I go off to this meditation retreat, and this meditation place, it's such a crazy place. It's at this place called Monroe Institute. It's up in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. Actually, I don't think they're mountains. I think they're foothills, but they call them mountains. But whatever. They're really cool.
Right. Okay.
But this guy, Bob Monroe, he's such a fascinating person to me. I read all of his books, which he's the one that was really behind the original binaural beat type of technology that people use for meditation now. Yeah. But back in the 40s and 50s when he was first developing this, he was doing all these experiments with brain waves and getting people put in certain brain waves by using this different frequency technology in each side of the ear. And it was just fascinating to me because I was never somebody who was good at meditating. I could do yoga all day long, but then the moment it's time for Shavasana, I want to walk out the door because it's boring.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so I want to go to Monroe. I want to go to the Monroe Mountain so I can learn how to meditate. And while I'm there, I meet this guy, and this guy's name is Will Harris, and it turns out he has my same birthday. So Will decides that we're twins, and Will Harris is the Tony Robbins of India. Okay? Okay. So he's my twin, except for I'm 5'10" white girl, and he's like a 5'3" bald black man. We have the same birthday, and he's 2 years older than me, but we have these synchronistic, we have this a lot of similarities about us and what we were doing. He's just 2 years older than me. And he literally goes to India and he'll have like 1 million people come to his speech. Like Tony Robbins has like 10,000.
Yeah.
Will Harris has 1 million.
Wow.
And it would be a whole nother story for me to tell you how that happened to him because it's actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
But so Will says to me, hey, I'm going to be doing this motivational weekend in New York, and I want you to come and, you know, you're going to come on stage with me and we're going to do this. So I'm like, great. And so I literally now decided to take my regular speech that I give for Words That Work, which is my business communication strategy, and I just like put a big old line through it, and I said, law of attraction. And I just changed every step in my communication strategy and called it law of attraction. And I recorded this speech on my cell phone. I told you this was going to get crazy.
Yeah.
I recorded this speech on my cell phone, and then I transcribed it, and then I worked with an editor to reverse engineer a book proposal. But the reason I called it law of attraction is because this place that Will and I were going to give this speech was Lilydale, New York. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not, no.
Okay, so Lilydale is the oldest spiritualist community in the country. Now, what I understand this means, and I know this because I've been to Lilydale, is in order to live in Lilydale, you have to talk to dead people. So it's literally spiritual mediums.
Wow, okay.
I know. It was the craziest trip ever. So he said, Mary, you cannot go to Lilydale and give a speech about business. He's like, you have to make it spiritual. So I was like, shit. But see, here's what's interesting to me. Look at how I had a need to be filled. Like I needed to change this proposal. So with 2 months left before my deadline for the proposal, I recorded this speech. I came up with this crazy outline about law of attraction, which by the way, my book is not about law of attraction. I'm not trying to give anyone that impression, but I used that for all these concepts that became this book, Conscious Communications, your step-by-step guide to harnessing the power of your words to change your mind, your choices, and your life. And the proposal turned out amazing. And I won first prize. I had a book deal. All of this happened within 7 months of going to that first writer's workshop. And I only had something like 2 months left to start over on a brand new proposal. But it's like the whole way I just felt like the universe, God, or whatever was just feeding me every step along the way of what I need. And that's just like this power of these synchronicities. And you can't explain that with neuroscience though.
Right. Yeah. All those, just you're right. Cause there's so many amazing things that had to happen in a particular order for all this to go through.
Right. I mean, like I had to go to this crazy Monroe Mountain. And when I say it's crazy, it's like because this Bob Monroe guy, he bought all this land, and the only people that he let like buy parcels of the land were all of these like ex-CIA people. I'm not kidding. You can't make this up. Like,
wow.
Yeah, so like I was there again this summer and at another meditation retreat. It's super cool. Like I love stuff like that. It's just I don't know, it attracts me. But so I'm literally up on this mountain and I'm staying at what they call Bob's Mountain Retreat, and next door is where his son-in-law's house is, and he owns the next plot. And it literally the name of this guy's book is Memoirs of a Psychic Spy.
Oh wait a minute, is it the same? So I read the book The Men Who Stare at Goats by what's the British author? But it's about the CIA psychic spy program. I wonder if it
probably has this guy in it. I mean, the guy's name that I'm talking about, his name is McGonagall. But see, when you go to this place, when you go on one of these meditation retreats, all of these facilitators are all of these guys that used to be in these like secret government programs. I'm probably getting in trouble saying this. I mean, no, not really, because they're all public about it. Right. But it's just the trippiest thing ever, and the stories they tell are just incredible. So you'll have to share that book with me later on.
I will. I'll look it up again once I come up with his name. He's a fascinating British writer who wrote that, which then it became a movie. But this mountain retreat sounds amazing.
Totally is.
Yeah. So, okay, so you write the book then, and then so have you So I saw that it came out in 2017. So did it just take like a year or so for it to go through the publishing process, or